Good morning, everyone. My name is Pat Pitocchi, and I am very, very pleased on April 1st, which is the start of a new month and spring and rebirth, to begin NABOR's web training. We are very, very pleased to do this, and I thank all of you for joining us. Today we're going to talk about how to become a market expert. In this year of 2020, knowledge is key. Your knowledge as a realtor is key in terms of attracting, retaining, and providing excellent service for your customers. How do you do that? One element is to become a market expert. You must know about the market. We're going to talk today about a 3-step process to help you with that. There are always 3 steps to nearly everything: a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I like to highlight the steps so that the process is clear for you. In step 1, we'd like you to get ready to start to gather general data. Every single one of you should know the general market data. NABOR does an outstanding job communicating that to you. But in your MLS, you have the means to find all of the statistical area data points. So step 1 is getting ready by taking a look at general data, making sure you know where to find it, how to get it, what it means. Step 2 will be for you to take a look at 1 to 3 areas of the 50 geo areas that exist in our market. We'd like you to highlight those areas by basing your decisions to work on those areas and work them by facts and data, not emotion. So after you look at the general data and the 50 geo areas in our market, you're going to focus down onto from 1 to 3, hopefully 3 areas for you to study in more depth. And those areas will produce, hopefully, an area for you to farm or an area that will become a niche market for you. 3rd step is to design a marketing plan. You must work on that area, not by saying I'm working on that area, but by designing a marketing plan for at least a year. So let's get busy and let's talk about a general approach. We want to make sure that we stress to everyone. Everyone wants to be successful, but Churchill's words, I think, are very, very poignant. Success is often nothing more than moving from one failure to the next with undiminished enthusiasm. We do not want you to become down, to give up. You must persevere, and you must move, hopefully, from one attempt to the next. And if it's not successful, hopefully you will examine the why of that and decide to make a change so that it will become successful for you. So what does that actually mean? We're going to talk about a lot of information here, and most of it is information that you already know, but it's information that we need to place within the overall 3-step process. Where do we start? We start by recognizing there are 50 geo areas. Can you become an expert in all 50? Perhaps, but certainly not. Within a week, within a month, within a year. So we need to take a look at those 50 geo areas and determine where to begin. We need to take a look, for example, at the number of transactions in all statuses, from active to pending with contingency, pending, sold, terminated, withdrawn, and expired. We need to take a look at each geo area to determine how active that area is. Another very important statistic is for you to take a look at the median price, that is the middle price, price number 4 of 7. That is not the same as the mean or the average price. And we use in our statistics often median price because it is a more stable indicator statistically. of the state of the area and the market. We also need to take a look at appreciation rates. We need to take a look at days on market, DOM. Based on those general facts and your already accrued knowledge, you're going to select 2 to 3 areas that you think will make sense based on these general facts for you to really dig into and learn. Now, how do you make that decision about selecting the 2 to 3 areas? You might take a look at where you live now, where you want to live. You must take a look at the interest of the residents. For example, if you are a boater and you want to look into and farm a boating community, that might make sense. It certainly would not make sense for you as a non-boater who knows nothing about boating to farm an area where the interest and hobby of those residents is boating. Another third issue is to consider if you have a contact or some plan to break the ice, to enter that community. If you know of the community, are involved in the community, have an interest that is similar, that might give you an entrance plan. If you have no way, no connection to the community, it might be more difficult for you and you're going to have to evolve some type of entrance plan. We also want you to look at the size of the area. We generally, in GRI, Graduate of the Realtor Institute classes, suggest that you should be looking at an area from 100 to 300 in a farm area. It is not possible to farm an area of 5,000 or 2,000. It's simply too large for you to be able to attain the results you like. But look at the area, look at the size of the community, of the area itself, and that is one of the factors that we'd like you to consider. Also, obviously, like you to consider the sales activity. If there has been one sale in that particular area in the past 6 months, perhaps there is not sufficient activity to warrant your investment of resources, and by resources we mean time and money, into farming that area. Like you also to consider future growth and development. We all know that there is a corridor on 951 Collier Boulevard, and there is much future growth in that area, particularly east of 951. You should know about that. You should also know about plans that are already evolved about development in that area. Another factor that is to be considered is market share. If there are 10 sales and all 10 were listed and sold by the same realtor, that realtor has considerable market share. If one realtor has already established himself or herself as the person, the go-to person in that area, it will require longer time, more money invested for you to enter that area, and you will have to decide if that is worthwhile. Also want you to take a look at zoning issues and FEMA issues. These apply to some areas and they are significant. If zoning will change, is in the process of being changed, that may affect the real estate market in that area. FEMA is another area, particularly in this day and age when each time the flood insurance has to be renewed, we have to look at it. We need to take a look at the FEMA issues. So, once we have maybe 3 areas that we have generally looked at, we now want to peel that onion again. We went from 50 and we decided to take a closer look, an even closer look at 3. So our first step is to take a look at 3 with the goal of reducing the 3 to 2 and then the 2 to 1. Now, how are we going to go about that? We're going to analyze the data. We want you to make that decision based on facts and data. What I really don't encourage people to do is to say, I'm going to farm this area because I love it. Great. Now tell me about all of the facts and the data related to that area, because the decision that you make is a business decision. And that decision should be based not totally on emotion, but on facts and data, so that you have sufficient activity to warrant your spending your resources to farm that area. So we want you to start to peel that onion and get even more facts and data and avoid those emotional responses. One excellent way of making sure that you're basing your decisions on data and facts is to verbalize, to put into words, why should I eliminate this area and leave these other two? You should be able to explain to somebody, based on facts and data, why you are going to eliminate that area. If you cannot, then you need to dig more deeply before you make that decision. Sometimes it's really helpful to verbalize that to someone outside, someone who's objective, not someone who will pat you on the head and say, that's really nice, that's very good, but someone who will say to you, well, why does that make sense? Why is that an important component in making this decision? Sometimes that can really, really, really help you. However, when you're drilling down in this area, we want you to consider absolutely everything, all of the facts and data in that area. Once you have eliminated one of the three and you're down to two, we keep going. We peel that onion more and get to the inner core. And we have two. We are going to compare and contrast those two to decide which is the better business decision. Which of those areas will be the better area to invest in so that you can encourage the increase of your business. Again, we want you to be able to verbalize why you are eliminating that second area, moving on to the final area. I think one of the very important considerations is how you are going to enter that area. It's like opening the door or breaking the ice. You must have an entrance plan into that area, and that might be the factor that decides and determines which of the areas, which of the two you are going to actually focus on. I also want you to consider your marketing budget, which should be in writing, and your business plan, which should be in writing. Please remember, a minimum of 6 to 8 touches every time we communicate with one of our prospects. That is a touch. And we can do that and must do that and must understand that the research has told us between 6 to 8 touches it takes for us to get into the mind of a prospect. 6 to 8. I usually encourage people to think of 12 and do the whole year. That kind of marketing plan can be successful. If you are planning to touch each prospect one time, it is not worth your time, your effort, and your funds. It really is not, because you're not going to get into their head. You must do that on some kind of regular basis, and there are many ways to do that. And hopefully your marketing plan will consider those ways. Other factors to consider when you are trying to make that very, very difficult decision from 2 to 1 are real estate data, community data, and other kinds of data. And let's just sort of list those out for you. With real estate data, I like you to encourage you to look at 2 years of data, all the classes. I like you to realize and understand that all realtor-assisted sales will show up in MLS, but if there have been sales in that area that did not involve realtors, you will find those in the public records. So if you want 100% of the sales, you need to look at both. Look at the MLS data and look at the public records data based on area that's very, very different. There are some areas and all of the sales, or 95% of the sales, come through MLS, and there are other areas where that number is different. So look at that data again, because we're looking for access and activity. I would like you to look at the tax values, and you must understand and know those tax values. What are the values, the tax values? The property appraisers determines the property appraiser's estimate of value, sends it to the tax collector, and the tax collector bases his tax assessment on that. Take a look at that. See if that fits what you're doing. It's possible to select a price point rather than a geo area. In other words, you might look at one particular price point, 500 to 750,000 in a couple of areas. That is up to you, and tax values can help you make that decision. Make a note always about rentals and whether rentals exist. Are they allowed? Are they common? What is the percentage of rentals in a given area? Because that might be a telling factor in determining whether you are dealing with primary owners in an area or whether you are dealing with investors. Take a look at the listing and selling realtors once again, so that you can determine if anyone already has established market share. Every transaction, hopefully, has 2 realtors involved in MLS, a listing realtor and a selling realtor. And we want to see if there is any domination in either or both of those categories. You can easily find all this information, by the way, on MLS's statistics module. It is one of my absolute favorite modules in MLS. I love it. I love statistics, and I love knowing all of that information, as you will. Also, look at days on market. Again, you can find those easily on MLS. Look at the sale price to list price ratios. That's very important. You might also want to make a note about original listing price and whether there have been changes in that, a repositioning of that price, and what the selling price ultimately is. And we want to know approximately what that percentage is. I think you'll be hearkened when you see we do pretty well with that. Lastly, the conditions of sale in that area. Are we dealing with true arm's length transitions with a knowledgeable seller and buyer and an open market? They both have knowledge of the market and they have agreed upon a value, and that was the sale price. Or are we dealing with distressed sales? Are we dealing with estate sales, distressed sales? Distressed sales mean short sales or foreclosures. We do not have many, thankfully. We did when we were in what I call the bad days in our market, but that can help you understand, the conditions of sale can help you understand the values. Those are kind of real estate facts, and I tried to list all of them so that you could use really all this information when you are comparing and contrasting areas. Now let's move on to the community. No, you need to know whether you're dealing with a PUD, which is a planned urban development. You need to understand whether you're dealing with a community that has restrictive covenants in the deeds. Is it a co-op? Are there condos? Is this a condo? A single-family home? You need to understand that community entirely. How do you do that? Well, one way is to contact the management company. If there is one, they might be self-managed, but if so, there must be a contact. You need to understand the process that that community utilizes. Is there an application for sale or rental? Establish a contact for that community so that you know whom to call if there is a question that evolves. What about the governance? Are there any changes in governance that that particular community is undergoing, considering, discussing, whatever? How do they do an annual meeting? How do they handle assessments, the regular assessments and special assessments? Are there any issues that have bubbled up in that community that are of concern? Sometimes there are issues involving traffic, involving the community's desire to do something, and the county's interplay with that. Are there any liens that have been that are posted in this community? Has the Management Association posted any liens on any of their members' properties? And are there any lawsuits? I'd like you to learn everything about that community. Any question that I should ask you if I walk into an open house in your farm area, you are hosting an open house in regular time, and I would ask a question, you should know the answer. If you do not know the answer, you should know where to get the answer. You need to know also whether the community is a CDD, a Community Development District, an MSTU, which is a Municipal Services Taxing Unit, an MBTU, that's another acronym that's used, the Municipal Benefits Taxing Unit. If that community is one of these, NABOR has crafted and put together a wonderful resource for you. I sit on the Legal Resources Committee, and the Legal Resources Committee does have a disclosure prepared so that potential buyers will understand if a community is a CDD, MSTU, or MBTU, but you as a realtor and member of NABOR have access to a complete listing of all Lee and Collier County CDDs and MSTUs, MBTUs, with the contact for each of that, each organization. Now, something could change. We recognize that because we obviously cannot update that sheet, but it's a marvelous resource for you to double check. Any CDD, MSTU, or MBTU will be, by arrangement, have what's called the original bond and operations and maintenance, and those will be billed on the tax bill as non-ad valorem fees. So you should be able to see on the tax bill what that fee is. You should also, with NABOR's great help, be able to contact the company that handles the management of this unit and ascertain all of the information. And we'll talk a little bit further about the information on the next slide. Please look at the maintenance of the community. Most communities are very well maintained now. When we were in the bad days, usually maintenance is something that is put off or deferred when there is a cash flow problem. But I don't think we're running into that today, hopefully. But do look at the maintenance, because if the community is well maintained, that's a positive. Look also at perimeter issues and development and zoning. For example, if you are looking at a community and next to that community there is open land that is undeveloped, you need to be aware of whether that there are restrictions on that development, particularly if you ever work with property that's on the perimeter of that community. Because if there is a single-family home at the perimeter, that owner could come home one day and find that the land on the other side has been stripped and is ready for development. You need to know about that from the get-go. Who owns that land? Is it land where restriction exists for development, or is it open? Because we cannot control any land we do not own. I would always encourage you to use Realist. The demographics in Realist are excellent, and our MLS system gives you so much information. I will tell you, and I know this sounds like a complaint, but it isn't. 15 years ago, we had to go digging around all this information. Now you can find lots of this information without leaving your chair and computer. It is a wonderful, wonderful positive. So make sure that you connect with it and use it. Insurability in a community is always an issue, particularly with buyers. We want to make sure it's insurable. We want to make sure that, think about FHA. The FHA requirements changed last October 15th. So there's no longer an FHA warrantable list. You must, on a case-by-case basis, it must be determined whether this particular property would be allowable or acceptable under the FHA, the Federal Housing Administration guidelines. They will take a look at the solvency of the community, the percentage of the communities that is a rental, the percentage owned by individuals, and they will also take a look at the reserves to make certain that the community is financially solvent. But it's on a case-by-case basis now. There is no list, so that we do have the ability to close with an FHA loan on some condos, but we do have to be mindful that we do have to get an authorization for that community. And there is a document that needs to be prepared in order to obtain that. Also, make sure that you get maps, floor plans. We have floor plans on MLS for many, not all, but for some areas, and those can be very helpful. Your community may be a supplier of some floor plans and some site plans. It's excellent for you to know the site plan so you know the scope of the community. So the maps, floor plans, and site plans are excellent for you to obtain for the community you are going to farm. Okay, we're still in step 2, gathering. If you, these are just sort of reminders, and some of them are a little bit repetitious, but I just wanted to make certain that we highlighted them because they are very, very important. In Collier County, there are many planned improvements. NABOR does an outstanding job presenting those to members. Hopefully you are aware of those. You should know that, what is being developed, what the plans east of 951 or Collier Boulevard are. Those are long-term development plans, but they can affect property, and you should be aware of those. So any planned improvements or developments are key. You should really be able to learn who the commissioner is that represents that area. In the event you would need or want to contact that person, generally the commissioners are very cooperative and are aware of what's going on in that area, and it might be an issue that comes up. You should know who that commissioner is that represents that area. If there are zoning restrictions and issues, you know about them. You know about the flood classification, and that is done on an annual basis, so you have to make sure that you pay attention to any change. I just recommend that you understand that there is such a thing as an electronic LOMA, which is a letter of map amendment that can be done for floods. With community-related issues, once again, if it's a CDD, make sure you understand the term and amount of the original bond. Is it solvent? Are they paying it? And what is the status? In addition, there is an operation and management fee Does that go on forever? If so, what is it? And that will travel with and be conveyed, usually at sale, to the new owner. The same with an MSTU or MBTU. And how do you find those out? You find those out by making sure you know the management company and the entity and the manager of the CDD. It will not be the manager often of the association. They will have somebody else manage that, and many times that is an electronic issue that you can have access to. One company does a lot of those. Okay, so after you have gone, excuse me, from 3 areas of possibility to 2 to 1, and you know everything that's possible to know about that area, so that you really feel comfortable in calling yourself the go-to person in that area, the marketing expert in that area. Now we switch, and we consider that your target area, and we need to design a marketing plan and a budget to support that plan. Plans are lovely, but we've got to be able to afford doing them. So we then coordinate and determine in our business plan, this is going to be my target area. I encourage you to plan a 1-year marketing plan, minimum of 6 to 8 touches. I usually encourage people to do 12. I always encourage people to put that in writing. Please remember, anything and everything that is in writing is more credible, and once we have you plan the year or the touches and when they will occur month by month, you increase the likelihood that you in fact will complete that and do it. So all of those times that you communicate, whether it's electronic or in person or whatever, vary those up. Typical marketing plans include typical approaches, whether that is mailers, whether that is newsletter, whatever. But I also want you to consider out-of-the-box touches. I love out-of-the-box approaches. We want to encourage you to differentiate yourself. And you do that with out-of-the-box touches. And you do that not by sending an email 12 times, but by varying with different strategies, by varying your approach. All of this is great, but step 1 is your entrance plan. How are you going to enter this area and become well known in this area? And each entrance plan is very different. We cannot give you sort of a template for that. It has to be different. It has to express who you are and so on. With that entrance plan, you will start with a consistent branding for this area. Every time you touch people, you should be touching them with the same brand, the design, the color, your tagline, your slogan. If I were to draw on this slide a bullseye in black and ask you, what is it? You'd say, it's a bullseye. If I draw that bullseye in the color red, many of you would say to me, that's Target. That's the brand for Target. Remember how much color can brand. Remember that every time you communicate or touch your people, it should look the same. The design should be the same. The color should be the same, so that that repetition is what will get you into their mind. Branding must also differentiate you. If I like to encourage people to do whatever others are not doing. You do not want just to repeat what somebody else is doing. You need a different approach, a bold approach, a creative approach. You also, when you're doing that, that marketing plan, make sure that you focus on the timing. For example, is it once a month? Is it every 6 weeks? What is the date? When are you going to plan to create whatever that marketing piece is? And when is it going to be distributed? If you plan it for the year, you increase the likelihood that you will do it 3 to 5 times, and that is what we want. We also want to encourage you to generate what we call an elevator speech, 60 to 90 minutes, that is tied to and really crystallizes your approach in that community. I also want you to make sure you receive a daily update. You can sign up for RSS feeds. You can have an automatic system whereby you are notified every time there is a change with a new listing, with a sale, something that went pending with contingencies, pending. You must really have your finger on the pulse of that community, and I find it's much easier for you to be the receiver rather than you're going into MLS or another source to check. Make sure that you sign up for a daily update and make sure that every day you know that, so that you know there are 8 active listings. And then as of today, there are 9. Or maybe there are 7 because 2 are pending with contingency. You need to know every day what is going on in your area. Okay, essentially, how else can you become a market expert? Essentially, I've already talked about how to plan the when and how you're going to execute your marketing plan, when you're going to do what month, what date. We also want you to get involved in the community. Don't be a secret agent. Get involved in the community, become visible. Some people hang out there. They're seen there, they're involved, they volunteer, they get involved. They sponsor events in the community, perhaps. I also want you to track all of your activity, how much time you're spending, because this is business. What is the source of all your leads? What is the effectiveness, efficacy of your marketing and the response to your marketing? We do not want you to continue a marketing plan that is not achieving results. We want you to take a look, whether that is weekly, monthly. Usually I encourage people to look at least monthly and then quarterly to determine if in fact you need to tweak anything or change something. Please remember the old adage that if you continue to do the same thing, you should expect the same results. If you continue to use a marketing plan that is not getting results and you expect results, there is a word that is used to describe that type of person. We don't want you to be like that. We want you to be a successful person who does know when and how to make that change. Generate scripting so that you have in your head, like the elevator speech, you have something that you can say that displays your knowledge of the area, so that when people speak with you, you display that, not in an arrogant way, but simply in a way of knowing, yes, I understand this area and I'm aware of everything that goes on. Okay. The last phase in step 3 is that you would analyze your marketing plan. I like you to do that weekly rather, so that you know how much time you're spending each day. And monthly, I like you to really make determinations about what to continue or what to change. If you are doing one activity and it's not achieving results, we would probably ask you to do some deep thinking about maybe how you can do that differently or when you can do that differently, and move from there. Definitely make changes to your plan quarterly, and those changes should be based not on what you like to do or don't like to do, but they should be based on results, feedback, and tracking. In former days, we used to meet with our broker quarterly, and we would really discuss every single piece of business and production and every single marketing that we were doing, every activity. That was not a negative. The broker was not giving us an evaluation that involved shaming us. That was to help us make sure what we were doing is productive and to increase our productivity. That's what we want you to do. And many, many times it's difficult for you to do that by taking a look at yourself. That's why many times coaching is important for people, because having those objective eyes, someone with totally objective eyes, look at this and say, what are you doing? You're spending 4 hours a week on this and it's produced no business. Should we make a change? You need to analyze in that way. We want you to track all your sales and listings, and always remember to get testimonials from all your customers. There's a little typo in the next one. I corrected it, but we have the older slide up. Please remember to reinvest 30 to 35% of your earnings into your business. And when we do that, a lot of that is going to be invested into marketing. And many times it definitely can affect this marketing plan for your farm area. But reinvest 30 to 35% of your earnings into your business. That's kind of the guideline. Okay. We've really gone through a lot of information, but I want you to remember threes. Threes are very important. There's a power of three in every form of art. And here we're talking about 3 steps to become a market expert. And I want to leave you with a few thoughts, again in threes. These are my 3 P's that I want to encourage you to remember. The first is preparation. I'm a real believer in preparation, like these 3 steps in becoming a market expert. You are a market expert if you know everything piece of information about an area, and that is what we want you to do. Preparation means planning. If you're going to farm an area, you need, in step 3, to do the planning for that. The next P is patience. You must have patience. If you adopt an amazing, wonderful, professional business plan and marketing plan, in one day or 1 month, after one touch of your prospects, you are not necessarily going to achieve the result you want. So you must have patience and go into it knowing this is going to take time. I am going to do this, and I am going to be patient. And the last P is perseverance. Every single day, whether you want to or not, if you are disciplined and you do what you intend to do and have planned to do in writing, and persevere through the 8 or 12 touches, you will see success. If you give up, particularly if you are doing something that's out of your comfort zone, most of the time that will not produce success. So remember the 3 P's: preparation, patience, and perseverance. Whenever I think of these, I think of words that Arnold Palmer, the great golfer, said. And what he said was, he noticed the more he practiced, the luckier he got on the golf course. Please, please remember, you do not become a golf pro or a real estate pro without a lot of preparation, a lot of patience, and a lot of perseverance. Ultimately, if you fail to plan and have your plan in writing, actually you are planning, but you're planning to fail. And these words come from one of our great thinkers, Benjamin Franklin, but I think we often forget those. Please remember that you must must plan to avoid failure. I also want to leave you asking you to speak positively. Right now, we are in a difficult situation. That's the reason we're doing this streaming. Hopefully, we're giving you some information, and we're also suggesting some tasks that you can perform at home. We're all working at home. Please, please remember to be positive and start your day looking at the positives. If you are healthy, that's a wonderful positive. If your family is healthy, that is another positive. If you have the ability to listen to these words, I think that's a positive. If we were in this situation 15 years ago, we would not be able to do this. This is a wonderful, wonderful option so that we can reach you and speak with you and encourage you and help you via the electronics that we have available to us now. But start your day, every day, looking in that mirror and talking with yourself about the positives. Today I'm going to do this. It's going to be fine. It's going to be wonderful. We do not want to focus on the other. Ultimately, many times we have to let go of what I am in order to become what I might be. And that really speaks to the issue of doing things that are out of your comfort zone. We know that realtors really detest many times cold calling, warm calling. Some realtors are very shy by nature, and they really don't like that interpersonal. Others are on the other end of the spectrum. I think that you have to be honest with yourself and indicate, gee, this is really something that I don't look forward to doing. Try to do that first, if you can, in the day, because otherwise you'll put it off. But ultimately, you need to craft what I call a real estate persona. You have to let go sometimes of who you are, what you are, in order to become an even better who and an even better what. And we want to encourage you to do that and soar with success with that. I want to encourage you to have 2020 become a banner year. Hopefully, becoming a market expert will help you obtain leads, turning them to prospects and converting them to customers. And with that, that is our really, really, really most powerful goal for you. I would therefore encourage you, you can see that there are several designations there. One that I want to leave you with and challenge you about is the C2EX designation. It is a certification, I should say, from NAR. And it is time-consuming. It really encompasses all elements of real estate. And the response I've had, because I am C2EX endorsed, and I do encourage everyone in my company to pursue this, and I encourage all realtors to do this. The feedback that I get most frequently is, this takes a long time, Pat. I'm here to tell you that we may have the time now, and I would really encourage you to do that. It really does encompass many, many, all of the elements of real estate. It is time consuming, but I know that it really is worthwhile. The other designations that are up there I will speak to briefly. One is ABR, the Accredited Buyer's Representative, an excellent program. On the top right, it's At Home with Diversity. In this day and age, April is Fair Housing Month, and I think it's very appropriate to encourage everyone to achieve At Home with Diversity certification. Below is CIPS, Certified International Property Specialist. In the middle is the Graduate of the Realtor Institute, which is kind of like an advanced degree in real estate. And the Realtor R, along with the Fair Housing symbol.
I encourage you to have the Realtor R and the fair housing symbol on all your marketing and all your processes and steps in your execution of business in real estate should comply with both the Code of Ethics in the Realtor R, because that's who we are, and the real estate equal housing opportunity symbol, so that all your systems align with that. With that, I will close and tell you that I wish you great success, and the one way to start achieving that is to remember that when you become a market expert, there are 3 steps and phases. It is a process that is demanding, and it is a process that leads to success. So, great success, and hopefully 2020 will be a banner year. Thank you very much for listening, and we appreciate all of you.